But these refineries don't necessarily, even if they buy locally crudes in whatever currency, they are internationally priced. Right? So I think there's a huge benefit of having what you would call local or domestic refining.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the MEMAN Energies podcast. My name is Durajaye Vanessa, the Senior Industry Analyst of MEMAN, which is the Major Energies Marketers Association of Nigeria. This podcast is being brought to you by the Industry Competency Centre, which is an initiative established by MEMAN to improve stakeholders' understanding of the downstream oil and gas sector and also to create more informed conversations around energy. For this very first episode, we'll be starting with the current trends happening right now in the country, which is Nigeria's energy costs. To help us break this further down, I have with me a professional with over 30 years of experience as the current MEMAN chairman and also the managing director of the NNPC Retail Limited, Mr. Hugh Stockman. You're welcome, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Vanessa.
Yes. Can you give us a bit of your background and what is currently driving your interest in the energy sector?
Well, I think my interest in the energy sector started when I was a teenager. And I was actually pump attendant at an association for many years. And maybe that's where I got the bug, if you want to call it like that. Of course, I kept on going to school and with my studies. But I think that's where I got the interest of let's say, the downstream industry. I love customer interactions. I thought always the product was very interesting. This product, the Pansy, usually, you can smell it, you need it because you need it for your mobility or for your energy resources. So I think, maybe as a teenager, I got a little bit hooked on it. And then when after university, I decided to choose a career. Actually, I had a choice between banking and energy, and I ended up in energy, and I don't regret it. It's in years that I've been in it. It's changed so much, irrespective of what part of the world you're from.
Wow, that's a very interesting background that interests in the energy sector. So talking about the Industry Competency Centre, I know it's something that MEMAN has put together so improve stakeholders' understanding on the sector. So what is it really about? What is the drive? What is the main objective of having the Industry Competency Centre?
Well, I think what you have is an industry, and then don't forget, after the PRA and the downstream energy sector in Nigeria is evolving. Yeah, let's say the deregulation of the industry, but you also have to, of course, the deregulation of the price. So the whole industry has become more dynamic. And the more, in some ways, it's now much closer to what's happening internationally. And I think what you need in any conversation and in any sector is data-driven, transparent conversations. Everybody talking about the same things, the same data, almost on the same page in terms of understanding. Now, what the MEMAN is trying to do is bridge that potential gap there is between people that are stakeholders in industry. And that can be anybody from regulators, industry players, general public, students, the press, to basically bring an understanding of what's happening in this industry. And I think for that competency center help us build, it is independently run from MEMAN. Yeah, it is accessible for anybody. It's not just for our members. It's also funded independently from MEMAN. The only thing we do is almost like facilitate these conversations, this discovery maybe of data that's relevant. And we do that in many ways. And the competency center itself is data. We do webinars, we organize trainings, and now, congratulations with organizing the first one, podcast, which of course is an easy way of bringing maybe sometimes complex subjects to everybody. And the nice thing about podcast is you can listen to it, you can stop it, pick it up where you left it from. So in that sense, I think it's a great medium as an additional, let's say, medium for the competency center to basically bring more clarity, more transparency, and more information to all the stakeholders and people interested in the downstream yields.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually agree with you. And this is the right time to really start this podcast. And talking about the podcast, starting with the rising cost of energy, it's something that we should actually dwell on because it's actually affecting everyone. We can feel the impact of this rising cost of energy. So, what do you think is the cause of this increase in prices that's currently affecting everybody's life?
Well, I think what we realize is that the whole world has become interconnected, and not just in terms of energy, but also in terms of flows of drugs or goods, or which means that actually an event in another part of the world can influence what happens in Nigeria, and actually for something that could happen, let's say in Nigeria, could influence other parts of the world. We have become a connected, almost like global economy. And I think and that also means that if something happens in world, and let's not take this example, the crisis in the East, yeah, it has major impacts. And the Strait of Hormuz, everybody knows it, it's often talked about, takes 20% of the world's gold crude and goes through it. So the moment you close it, of course, it's going to have an impact, and markets react to that. But what we also need to understand is not just crude. There's a lot of natural gases flow through it. There are a lot of refineries on the street of Hormuz that actually bring diesel, jet fuel to other parts of the world. So we need to understand then that it has an impact. Don't skip also, we have more than 2,000 vessels, not just the vessels for crude or gas or products, as also containers and other ones for goods are stuck somewhere. It has an impact because they were supposed to be somewhere else today. So it impacts not just the flow of, let's say, topics, but also it has an influence on shipping costs. When there's a crisis and conflicts, insurance premiums go up. Yeah, it has an impact on how product flows. And, maybe the vessels need to go around Cape Good Hope instead of maybe using the Suez Channel. So it all has the world is so much more interconnected that these kind of things have a big ripple effect. Now, of course, what you do is that because there's uncertainty and nobody knows when it will end and how it will in fact affect permanently, let's say, the flow with all these news and dollars and crude, that's a price impact. But the price tag not just on the products and goods, but also, like I said, on shipping, insurance premiums, and logistics are time to get talks to the market. People need to reassess, okay, where do I get my product from now? You are saying 20% is not that much, but it's a major impact on the global economy. As when there's uncertainty, prices go up. And Nigeria is interconnected with the rest of the world. So that has crisis in Nigeria also is. So it's a very impact. Now, you have the great thing that you're refinery.
Yes.
So in terms of having a refinery is indeed for Nigeria now a great advantage
Yes.
for two reasons. One, it brings energy security, and you're not dependent only from incomes. Um, but also it actually helps West Africa, other parts of the world, actually in terms of for the sort of their energy security. Because especially in the diesel and jet fuel, the refinery produces more than what the demand is of Nigeria. So it spreads an opportunity to export. So in that sense, Nigeria is contributing to some alleviation or some reduce some okay impact that the president that it has, but of course tries to help out.
So, from your response, you're saying that the Dangote Refinery has a significant impact because a lot of Nigerians are upset. Oh, since we have in-house refinery.
It's an interconnected world. So the prices in Nigeria are also determined in the rest of the world, and we don't get in isolation. And I must say, of course, it's tough. It's tough when you see the energy prices going up because it's not just it does not impact only the price at pump, or it also will and then it impacts the price of logistics because goods go from A to B in Nigeria. Nigeria is quite dependent, of course, of road transport for bringing all kinds of goods across the coast. So the thing is, when these kind of things happen, that consumers and the businesses need to say, what can I do to be more efficient? What can I do to actually reduce some of this impact?
Yes.
So, and you can say, can I reduce some of my huge usage of electricity or energy as well as energy?
Yes. Yes.
But a lot of the energy is generated through things like oil or others. Do I make choices of where I travel and when I don't travel? And the great thing is that nowadays we can be much more remotely connected and within use.
Yes.
And for businesses, of course, the thing is, can I use alternative ways of fueling my trucks? And CNG is one of the ways. It is a cost benefit versus diesel.
Yes.
And so is that a way to how do I use other sources of energy, being the solar? By the way, solar is also important to the
Yes.
individuals,
Individual.
and to base gas, basically reduce the way that the energy is costing my input in my business. So it's about usage. It's about other alternatives. Um, and if you think about it, the rise of EVs and hybrid cars in Nigeria, there are more cars being converted to CNG. So people make choices that fit their individual situation, both as an individual and as a company. And I think, and I hope that people I always say sometimes prices are not great. Usually that's this impact. But if you're becoming more efficient in what you're doing, actually that you also have a long-term impact. That even if prices could come down and go to different levels, lower levels, you still can benefit at those efficiencies. So I think sometimes you stand to say if I have a long-term impact also in a positive. Although with the time, I fully sympathize with both Junior and the businesses in Nigeria. It's a tough road cut, Sunny. For you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I know you touched about what individuals and businesses can currently do to reduce the impact of the rising cost of energy. Uh, I want to go into the government angle. I know the Minister of Finance mentioned recently that we are not going back to subsidy. But what other options can the government give to reduce this impact?
I think it's not for me to say what a government can or cannot do. What a government can obviously is look at other countries. Is there something that another country does which they could let's say, hey, could we also do this in Nigeria? And and it's not for me to say what the government can do, but I think the Minister of Finance made a very clear step. We're not going back to the past subsidy because it's a big impact on your finances, but that's not the only one. It creates an inefficiency. Yeah, and the great thing what Nigeria does is for a chance of a very and it's of any transition raise at times protection some of volatility, as we're seeing. And then people say, well, is it the right thing? But it also over time will allow competition to actually drive your price. That way you pay the best person weighing that's the most efficient.
Yes.
It will also help people to think about, okay, what do I do with my energy use? It will maybe you say, are there alternatives? Solar can be some biofuels. It can be our EVs part of the way that we do the mobility of the time. And so it just is not a single source energy conversation anymore. Um, then I think so tough is I would say to government see what other governments do and say it's something could work also in Nigeria. But I think the transition to fully, where I would say fully price regulated market is a transition.
Yes.
And the transition always comes, and the transition doesn't happen in 1 week. And we got it now for about a year, and it's different phases. And Nigeria will come to a kind of environment that is yes, it's all prices peak and prices get international, but people also see how they can actually make the best energy mix for themselves, how they can create efficiencies, and how competition will also drive all those efficiencies. and also privacy, efficiency, and so competition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for those valuable insights. So we've been carrying a lot of conversations as regards local refining. Now we've got the big refinery and also we have the smaller ones. What do you think is the benefit of local refining to Nigeria?
Well, I think what refineries do and local refineries is not just a product they produce that we all know. No, that's not there. Also, they're petrochemical complexes. So they actually produce many other things. You create an industry. If you think about it, the fertilizers can be made, plastics, because it's not just the products that you get. Often there's a whole industrial competence around it that actually does much more than just what we sometimes think about refineries. So that's one element. Of course, it creates jobs. And it also creates high technical jobs. So it's an engine, I would say, for economic development.
Yes.
Now, what overall people of course always say is that you've got a refinery that creates energy supply security. Yeah, because you've got it within your borders or within your area. It reduces logistic costs because if you give local crude, of course, the products after the crude is close by. But actually, even if that doesn't happen, even if you import crude to running refinery, after it's introduced, it's much closer to the market. So there are logistic efficiencies that you create. So I think there's a huge benefit of having what you would call local or domestic refining. Is to go actually beyond just producing the products that we're going up. But these refineries don't necessarily, even if they buy locally crudes in whatever currency, they are internationally priced. Right? And often, even if a country has local refineries and local oil production, it might still import quite a bit of the crude. Now, that happens at international prices. Yeah, you need to realize these are big investors. When people do big investors, they expect a return. It's because running loss. So my argument is, in reality, those refineries will produce their products and sell them at the international prices. So that that's just how it works internationally. As I said before, Nigeria is not isolated. It's internationally connected. The world is connected. And not connected in these kind of ways. But it creates a sustainable source of products that aids energy security. And I think that's part important to understand.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And thanks to everyone who joined us today for the inaugural episode of the MEMAN Energies podcast by the Industry Competency Centre. We hope you found this informative. Do not forget to follow us on our social media handles displayed on the screen. Like, comment, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. See you on the next one. Thank you.